Hello, everybody. Welcome along. My name is Benjamin Bloom. This is the Benjamin Bloom Football Channel. Please leave your bias at the door and join us to discuss a pretty big championship story, which tells us that Steve Cooper will be leaving Swansea. It was only yesterday I posted a tweet saying there's only 8 managers that were in the championship 1 year ago yesterday. Carlos Corberon would have been about tomorrow, I think, that are still in the job. And we had a bit of back and forth on Twitter about which of these 8 would be last in the season. And I didn't for 1 minute think that the very next day we would be looking at somebody possibly going. I thought, oh, this will be whoever wins one in their first 10 or whatever of those 8 is going to be in trouble. But not only is it one of those 8, but probably need to check, but easily, the highest ranking of those 8, it has to be, because all 3 managers that finished above Steve Cooper last season got promoted to the Premier League, didn't they? Because Swansea, of course, finished 4th, and it looks like Cooper is all done over at Swansea. So we've got a couple of sources on this, and they've very nearly got the same picture. Well done for John Percival and the Telegraph for the water bottle there that Stuart James at The Athletic didn't get. So Percy, first of all, goes with it. Steve Cooper to leave his position as Swansea head coach. Official announcement confirming a mutual termination of his contract expected later this week. And then Stuart James, frustrated by the failure to sign a number 9 in January. No relationship with the CEO. Another summer of selling best players and an acceptance from both parties that this journey had run its course. And that's before we get to the timing of Steve Cooper's exit. So look, thanks to those guys breaking the story. Of course, go and check out the Telegraph and the Athletic. You may need to dip behind the old paywall for that as well. But hey, look, these guys do work hard at this. So go on, give them some of your hard-earned and then come to me for free on YouTube. You'll get my opinion on it. You won't get anything insider from me. But Steve Cooper then very much looks like this is a done deal. And from what Stuart James is saying, it's been a done deal for a fair while, and they're already looking for replacements, or have replacements possibly been sounded out in terms of the timing. Look, obviously we're on a short schedule as such in terms of the COVID delay and the playoffs, and the fact that Swansea went to the last championship game of the playoff final. And then, of course, you go to Euro 2020, which does disrupt things. A couple of Swans in the Wales squad as well. Connor Roberts on the score sheet as well in the Euros. But what did Stuart James say that did kind of ring true there? A journey that had run its course. And this, of course, is a familiar journey, because it's a journey of a club that's come down from the Premier League 3 seasons ago and has now run out of the parachute payments, which I talk about a lot and managers evidently value. We've seen a few managers now get to the point where the parachute money has gone, have a discussion, realise the lay of the land is, okay, we are not at an advantage here like perhaps we may have been. And of course, we'll get into the nuances of what the Swansea ownership have actually done and how little, frankly, they have actually spent. But sometimes it's a very cold, hard reality that both Swansea and Stoke City now, they didn't have the plain sailing we saw from Norwich and Watford last season, did they? But both of those clubs are sort of looking at it now and thinking, well, okay, FFP, no parachute payments. We're in the muck and bullets with the rest of these guys. And it's tricky with a club like Swansea, isn't it? Where the Swansea fans have got used to a bit of a golden era, really, and several seasons. I don't know exactly how many. Feels like 7 or 8, 9, possibly 10. I don't know. Seasons up in the Premier League. No, actually, no, we can work this out. Brendan Rodgers, 2012. Let's go 7. Is that a good guess? Pass. I remember Scott Sinclair and Brendan Rodgers, and up they went, didn't they? And good side in the Premier League, and won a trophy up there with Michael Laudrup. But, and this is a big but, and I think we're going back to John Toshak possibly in the 70s, Swansea weren't in the top division and traditionally aren't in the top division very often in terms of that history there. And it's always that question of, can you make the advantage of that transitional period with the parachute money and still with some of those Premier League players that have come down with you, you get yourself back up, because we know where the cliff edge and the big cliff edge is, where Swansea have just hit now. You want that Premier League TV money? If you can't have that, be in the Championship with the parachutes. If not, you're swimming with the rest of the fish in that part of the pond, aren't you? Here are the 3 finishes since the Swans have been down. The first one at the top there, that 10th place, is under Graham Potter. And I remember going on Swanscast earlier in the season, or past season rather, and them saying, okay, we played lovely football under Graham Potter, but finished 10th with McBurney and with Dan James as well. In comes Steve Cooper, first season, 6th position. Yes, we should point out that 70 points is a low total to get to the playoffs, but it's a competition. And we should point out that they snuck in those playoffs right at the last minute, didn't they? Just slunk in past Nottingham Forest. But I'll repeat, it's a competition. And whoever finishes 6th, finishes 6th. Whether they've got 80 points or 70 points or whatever they got in there, lost to Brentford in the semi-finals. Remember at the end of that season, Rhian Brewster on loan and Conor Gallagher on loan. Mark Guay in there for the first time, and Matt Grimes in the central midfield, sort of pulling strings. Mike van der Hoorn at the back. It's a good side. Decent side building there. And, of course, they went 2 positions higher last season. Andre Ayew up front with Jamal Lowe. Conor Hourihane in on loan. Fulton and Grimes. And then the emergence of Roberts and Bidwell. The wing-backs with Guay, Cabango, the youngsters. Excellent lone goalkeeper in Woodman. And when you go back to Stuart James' comment of the end of a journey, it did feel, is that the peak? Is that the peak? And Cooper had obviously gone to what he knew. He'd worked previously for the England representative teams and managed to pull in Latabodiere and Guay, and I think it Gibbs White as well. Didn't quite work out that one, but I think he had that good knowledge of those age groups, and there is some sense that he gave it his best shot in those 2 seasons. And look, it is a climb. We can all follow that line, 10th to 6th to 4th. And now the bar is as high as it's been league position-wise for Swansea. But now the turnover drops, doesn't it? What is it? 45 million, then 35, and then 15. That's gone. What are the saleable assets in there? And now you start looking in terms of people lining up in the playoff final. No Cooper on the bench. Glaze at Palace. Hourihane will presumably go on loan somewhere in the Championship, possibly somewhere else. And Ayew, the main guy up top, has gone, hasn't he? It's, the winger into converted striker there. So you start to make a lot of reasonable arguments that it's going to be up, and is 4th place going to be attainable now with the new manager coming in? Here is a list of players that have gone out, and that's not everybody. That's just the top sales each season. And I mean, if you just take the top numbers, take the ones that are over 10 million. Look, Mawson for 15 mil. McBurney, 17. Dan James, 16. Joe Rodden, 10. As ever, these are transfer marked figures. If you want to get emotional about transfer numbers, please send them a strongly worded letter. I don't care. I don't know. You don't know either. They're all undisclosed, so don't pretend. Anyway. But also, look, and then Fabianski 7, Klukas 6, Fernandez 6, Mesa 5, Bartley 4, Jordan Ayew 2, Selena as well. Yes, I know that first season Premier League clubs clear out, don't they? They clear the decks. But it has been every season that there's been a big sale. Mawson, McBurney, James, Rodden as well. And I think I did a quick check. I think it's pretty much Selena and Joel Asoro, the only players since Swansea have been down that have come in for over $1 million. So there's a lot of players left for over 10 million and very few come in for sort of over 1 million. They've used the loan market extensively, but I don't have to be, Dustin Hoffman in Rain Man, the best number bod in the world, to make an argument that there's a lot more gone out in terms of, or a lot more money come in terms of transfer fees that's gone out in terms of spending. And I would suggest that whilst that has been happening, for the league position to be improving, that's kind of direct contradiction, isn't it? So, and I'll say this very clearly, on paper, given league finishes and the turnover and the recruitment direction, it would appear that Swansea have been managed well from the dugout. I'm not saying from the boardroom, let's just say. Now, I get that, and it can be infuriating when you support a team and someone like me who doesn't support it comes along and gets a load of numbers and statistics and makes this conclusion. When that misses out nuance, doesn't it? And watching the team. And I have watched a lot of Swansea, obviously not as much as a Swansea fan who watched every minute of it. And I obviously respect that. So if the numbers and the on-paper stuff tell us that Steve Cooper did a good job, what does the eye test tell us? The eye test tells us in his first season they started brilliantly, didn't they? And sort of won 5 or 6. And the idea was that that the ball was moved methodically, maybe not as quickly as certain teams in the league, and that they snuck in. Also, my eye test told me that they always lacked a focal point striker after McBurney had gone. And whilst I had some, frankly, comical discussions with people on Twitter telling me Andre Ayew is a striker, he's not. He was a wide player converted, so was Jamal Lowe. It felt like when Brewster was there, the whole picture was complete. But you can see in Stuart James' article on The Athletic that, there were some issues about not being backed over a number. Now, I tried to say Victor Gyökeres on loan, didn't they? And that didn't work out either. And he stuck with essentially 2 converted wingers up front. So, and the eye test. Look, I think there were certain things that went a bit too far in describing Cooper. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't long ball and dire and boring as some described it. Swansea did, to an extent, run out of steam, and it did become a bit more methodical than perhaps Swans fans would have wanted it. Okay, we all want our team to win, and we also want to be entertained while they win as well. Sometimes it's a lot to ask, and I think it was probably too much to ask there for Swansea last season, and flat midfield threes and holding back and hanging back 5-4-1 without the ball and all of that good stuff. But look, what happened last season was Swansea were beaten by 2 Year 1 parachute teams. The other Year 1 parachute team that sold the 3 best players finished in the playoffs as well. And Brentford did them in the playoff final. Brentford had been building up for years. They were close. They were about as close as you would expect they could have gone. And it would have been a real good achievement if Cooper had gone that one step further and got Swansea up. So yes, I do accept that they ran out of steam a bit. But honestly, is that really Steve Cooper's fault? If he'd been given a striker in January, would that have helped? If they hadn't continually sold the top guy every season, would that have helped? Well, yeah. So long and short of it is, I think he did a very decent job. And if whoever comes in next at Swansea gets them anywhere near 4th, That's a fantastic job. If they match Cooper's league position with what we know will be less resources, and we already know they've got less players than, frankly, Graham Potter had in the first season to finish 10th in some respects, then I think that's a fine job, isn't it? There are some next manager odds. I thought I would see Chris Wilder's name on there. It's not. Eddie Howe is there. Frank Lampard is there. Two managers. Howe's obviously won the league back in 14-15 with Bournemouth. Lampard, playoff finalist in 18-19. Alex Neil is young and well known to the division. John Terry, obviously a huge name and gets linked with a lot of championship jobs. Neil Lennon has managed down here in the championship with Bolton. Been up with Celtic most recently. And I've just popped over on the side there. And okay, these are kind of speculative odds from the bookies on the championship. This is to win the championship. You've got West Brom and Fulham and Sheffield Wednesday, the 3-year one parachute teams ahead. But then look, Bournemouth and then Swansea. I mean, look, it's the other parachute team and then the playoff finalists. It's all fairly easy to argue. But I wonder if those odds will drift now that Steve Cooper is gone. Do you fancy any of those guys in there? Howe, Lampard, Alex Neil. Immediately when I retweeted John Percy's tweet today, I got lots of tweets back saying, he'll go back into the England age group representative fold, where he was very good. I think he's a good manager, Steve Cooper. I wondered whether he'd head to Palace. I did see another tweet. I forget who it was from as well. They did have the blue check mark, I have to say, but that means nothing, hey? I've got one of them and I talk loads of nonsense sometimes. But it said the club and the CEO said to be unhappy with him blowing kissy faces at Fulham and West Brom and Sheffield United and Palace during the summer. So, I don't know. Lies, damn lies and speculation. What we do know is that Cooper is going to be on his way out, and it's fairly well sourced, this one. So I've had my say. Now you have yours. What do you make of the job that Steve Cooper did? Are you giving him give him a score out of 10 in the comments as well? It's a thumbs up from me always with Cooper. 10th under Potter to 6th to 4th, playoff semi-final, playoff final, fell at the final hurdle whilst players were being sold every time. Who comes in, and given that parachute money has now run out and there's not really been a great deal of spending at all, is there star power left to sell there? Ben Cabango, Connor Roberts, Matt Grimes. Can they keep selling one big one and go in another season and go in another season? I don't know. What are the expectations for Swansea? Who do you think will be in there, and who do you think would be a good hire as well? Let me know what you think on the slightly surprising news that Steve Cooper will be leaving Swansea. Does this count as our first managerial departure of the season, with the season starting in 3 weeks? I said that when Silver and Shop went into Barnsley and Fulham that we were sorted and we had our 24. So I'm classing it as our first departure of the season, even though the season hasn't started. What are you going to do? Hey, what are you going to do? Hopefully what you're going to do is you're going to get in the comments. And as ever, let's try and make these comments a great space on YouTube where we don't have the particularly ridiculous name calling and points scoring and outrage and rubbish emotional claptrap that we get on a lot of social media. Let's make this a good space to interact, talk about football, share our knowledge and give our opinions. And God damn it, if someone has a different opinion to you, that's okay. You don't have to hate them. There we go. Ben's moral lesson of the day. And Steve Cooper is going to be leaving the Swans. That is my thoughts, and I would love to hear yours. Get in the comments. And it's a big over and out from me. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button to see more videos from this channel. Hit the subscribe button and to be notified every time we upload. Ring the bell for those notifications to come through on your device. If you really want to support the channel and me as a content creator, I will be eternally grateful if you head over to the merch store and grab something, or support over on Patreon, patreon.com/Benjamin Bloom. Thank you for your time. Go and watch another video.